Now we've got the chair of the Wisconsin Democrats, Ben Wikler. Ben, thanks for coming back on.
Great to be here with you, Brian.
So, Ben, you've got a big announcement here. So, first off, floor is yours.
I'm running for chair of the Democratic National Committee. I'm running because we're in a moment of national crisis. We can see Trump and his would-be oligarch backers taking the reins of power now with unified control of the federal government, and their plan is to rig our country to ensure that the very wealthiest, most far-right special interests control everything, with democracy and the public and working people be damned. And that means that we need to build the kind of organization, the kind of focus, the communications apparatus to take that on and win in state after state until we can end the Trump and MAGA era forever. And for me, the model for this is exactly what we've done in Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, Republicans took over our state in 2010. They started smashing unions, gerrymandering districts, stomping on voting rights, defunding public schools, and we fought back. I was working at MoveOn, fighting against the repeal of the Affordable Care Act, and then started coming home and volunteering in 2018. Democrats won statewide races. And then in 2019, I was elected state party chair and worked to supercharge our statewide organizing program and our communications and digital efforts so that we can win a majority on our state Supreme Court, reelect our Democratic governor, beat Trump in 2020. Now we have fair maps. We won 14 state legislative races this year, even in the midst of a big Republican red wave. We won Tammy Baldwin's U.S. Senate race. She's back for a third term now. In the presidential, we had the smallest swing towards Trump of any battleground state. And that's because we turned out more Democrats in 2024 than we did in 2020. That turnout went up on the Democratic side in our state in Wisconsin. Now, this isn't horseshoes. Getting close is not good enough, but we've seen the impact of this work. We know how to scale this up. And what draws me to run for the Democratic National Committee chair is the experience that if we unite, if we fight everywhere in every state up and down the ballot through our communication to reach voters who are not paying attention to what Democratic politicians have to say, and through our grassroots organizing on the ground, then we can win. And that's my campaign theme: unite, fight, win.
Ben, what would you change about the way that the DNC is currently run?
I am really grateful for the extraordinary folks who work at the DNC, for Chair Jamie Harrison. I also think we need more. We need a bigger operation. It'll take more resources to do it, and we're going to need those folks all over the country to chip in, to become monthly donors to support that effort. And we need more people power, because I think the opportunity is for the Democratic National Committee to partner with all the states to build the kind of plan that we've been executing in Wisconsin and that you've seen in some places in states around the country. We need to do that everywhere, to think through not just how we get ready for the midterms and the presidential race in 2028, but to look at things like Supreme Court races. If we had not lost the Supreme Court majority in North Carolina a few years ago, then Republicans wouldn't have been able to gerrymander that state. That cost us 3 Democratic House seats, and we would have had a majority in the U.S. House right now if it weren't for state Supreme Court losses in North Carolina years ago. I think we need to be winning those kinds of fights. And so I think the big shift is to help to grow the Democratic National Committee's capacity and focus to be able to engage in planning it for the long term in these races that are far from the national spotlight with all of the states, so that we can build and fight up and down the ballot in every kind of community and every kind of county in the way that we've been doing in Wisconsin and can do nationwide.
Now, you'd mentioned fundraising, and I know that this has been a bit of a pressure point here with Democrats across the country. So what do you do about the fundraising situation? Because I know a lot of people watching this are tired of the requests. They feel that the requests are relentless, and it makes us feel like pawns in some big money-making operation where they basically just exist to squeeze every dime out of us until we're no longer able to give any money, and then the relationship turns sour. So it's not exactly a what I would consider a healthy relationship here. That said, I understand that all of this costs money, especially when the other side has someone like Elon Musk who's willing to just write a blank check. So how do you reconcile this?
So I think the beginning of successful fundraising relationships, both for the people chipping in a few bucks a month and for the folks who then spend that money, is trust and respect. That affects how you communicate about what is happening. I think having transparency and having honesty about what you're actually raising funds to do, being able to report back to people about how their funds were used and the kind of effect it had. If you fall short, talking through what you do differently, and if you succeed, actually analyzing what things worked, spending money as efficiently as you can. So I think if you run an efficient operation, it is actually possible to make it bigger because people like to donate if they feel like their money is actually being put to good use to have a real effect. And that, I think the feeling of exhaustion and being hammered and being pulled apart, it comes from getting a relentless flood of messages, all of which are kind of hair on fire and the polar coaster and give people a sense that maybe it's all BS, maybe it's not real.
Right.
If you started from a position of we're on this journey together and we need your time as volunteers. We need funds to be able to hire folks so we can better use your time as volunteers. Here are the fights that we're engaging in. Here's the result of those fights. My experience in Wisconsin, we've raised more money than any other state party in the Democratic side over the last 6 years, as far as we've been able to calculate. But we hear a lot from donors after elections that they feel really good about having contributed to the work because they can see the effect that it had and they're hungry for the next fight. Right now, we have a state Supreme Court race in Wisconsin in the spring of 2025. It is urgent that we have the resources to fight there because that will affect the future of the U.S. House majority, Wisconsin state legislative majorities, reproductive freedom, workers' rights, public education in our state. It's a big, high-stakes fight. And we're upfront about all that and asking people to support it. That's the kind of thing that I want to ask folks for support of the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. And I think we bring that same lens to the national party's fundraising. And I think the DNC should work with Act Blue, with our partner campaigns and candidate committees to really rethink how we do Democratic fundraising in general to try to make a better experience for folks that are investing. Because people tend to want to do more of things that feel good when they do them. And it should be a great experience to contribute to Democrats to fight for our shared values.
There does seem to be something of an issue where there are certain races, because they might be higher profile, might be sexier, that garner a lot of money, and they might be completely unwinnable. I mean, if you look at the amount of money, for example, that went to Amy McGrath, the amount of money that went to Marjorie Taylor Greene's opponent, if some of that money went to other campaigns, other candidates who were running across the country who could have really used it and whose races were clearly, objectively much more winnable than going up against Mitch McConnell in Kentucky or Marjorie Taylor Greene in Georgia. How do you view that? And is there anything that you would look to do as DNC chair that might rectify some of those kind of inequities? So
donors give for lots of different reasons. Sometimes they give to throw up a middle finger to someone that they just absolutely loathe, even if it's going to be tough to defeat them in the election. And I get that. I think that the job of the Democratic National Committee chair and for folks in leadership positions in state parties across the country, a key part of the job will be to make what's important compelling, to make what's effective also viral. And sometimes that's a cultural strategy, sometimes that's a communication strategy. But to me, communicating, here's what we're going to try to do to win. Here's why this race, here's why this fight, here's why this new approach to data, whatever the thing might be, here's why it's absolutely essential to the things that you and I both care about. That can help to bring attention to things that need to grow. And I think we've been able to do that really effectively in Wisconsin. We've been able, because of that, to invest, for example, in these state legislative races in this election cycle. We were able to raise and support state legislative candidates with $20 million. And that has put us on track to potentially win majorities in both legislative chambers in 2026. Republicans went from an 11-seat majority to just having 2 more seats that Democrats need to win to be able to win a majority in that chamber. And in the state assembly, they had 15-seat edge. Now they only have 5. That kind of work in races that are not the thing that people wake up and open their favorite microblogging app, whatever Blue Sky and Twitter and Threads are these days. They might not be the things they think about first, but I do think that if we can bring the focus of our movement to the things that really make a difference and people throw everything they can at them and then we win, then we have a shared sense that we did something important together, and that gets people fired up for the next fight. What brings disillusionment is when people feel like what they did didn't count, or they feel like they did it on false premises and they were focusing their attention and their work and their effort and their hard-earned money on things that actually made no difference at all. That is incredibly frustrating. But when you feel like you were part of something that actually made a difference about the things you care the most about, then it becomes something that you want to make a part of your life for years to come.
Ben, I've been a big part of the chorus of people who is begging for a Ben Wikler in every state across the country. Would you, atop the DNC, effectively be that coming to fruition?
Well, One thing I want to say, we have amazing state party chairs in so many places across this country, and a lot of them are in states that are not the kind of pivotal hinge state the way that Wisconsin has often been, and get less attention and less support. I think one thing I'm excited to do is work to help to bring more attention and focus to the work that they're doing and to their leadership in other states, which will help them to be able to energize folks more and to win more in those states. So I don't think this is fundamentally a Ben Wikler issue. I will say that being in the role of national party chair, it means that my attention will be to support all the states around the country and the folks doing the work on the front lines in so many battles. I was talking to leaders in some of the reddest states in the country. And in those states, if Democrats win a couple more state legislative seats, they can prevent Republicans from defunding the entire public education system, or they can protect the scholarship programs and let people attend universities, or they can ensure that Republicans divided Republican parties actually can expand Medicaid and make sure that more people get health care. So even in places where we are very far from a majority, Democrats can make a critical difference. And I want to help to bring a spotlight to that and to help to bring resources and energy to things that affect people's lives in real ways, but that right now are getting very little attention. I think just because the right so often dominates the whole conversation about what's happening politically. We have values that resonate across the country, and we have Republicans intent on preventing voters from hearing from Democrats about what it is that we're fighting for. We fight for working people across this country. We fight for fundamental ideas of freedom, of the inherent human dignity and worth of everyone, no matter what they look like or who they love or how they identify or how far they have to drive to reach a grocery store in rural areas. We think that everyone counts. And we're going to fight for that belief against Republicans who want to rig this system for the wealthiest, most extreme special interests in the world. And if we can do our work and if we can tell our story and energize people, we're going to win victories in all kinds of places across the country. And that gets my blood flowing. That is what I want to do in this moment of national crisis. That's what we've been doing in Wisconsin. We've proven that it can work, and I think we can do it nationwide.
Well, a big part of the reason that Republicans are able to so effectively dominate the conversation is because of the right-wing media ecosystem and the extent to which it dwarfs what we have on the left. I've been particularly focused on the media and the way that it's changing, and frankly, the way that the Democratic Party more broadly refuses to acknowledge its importance and its scope, especially as it relates to independent media. So how would you take into account independent progressive media in your role as DNC chair?
I think independent progressive media is absolutely essential to the fight for American democracy, for freedom, and for an economy that delivers for working people. And I think what you do is a prime example of that. And I know that you're building a whole network of folks that are doing this work. There's so many people who are communicating every day, who are building audiences, building trust, helping people to learn what's actually going on in this country. And I think the Democratic National Committee and the Democratic Party can be a more effective partner in ensuring that candidates and newsmakers and communicators come on shows and talk about them, that we partner, we look for ways to help to build up this ecosystem and to equip communicators to go onto the right-wing ecosystem and try to puncture that bubble and keep looking for ways to build channels to reach people who are tuning out of politics. And I think you have to do all three. I think as Democrats, it's so tempting often for people to who work in politics to just focus on the mainstream media things that they and their friends consume. And that can be, often politicians are talking to each other through the press when they're trying to influence votes for things in Congress. That's an important part of how democracy works. But that's not how you move a majority of the electorate. Most people in this country do not watch Sunday morning news shows. A lot of people, under 50 have no idea that there are Sunday morning news shows. And so while Sunday morning news shows play an important thing, and I was on a couple today, it is also critical to go where the voters are and help folks who share democratic values to build their audiences and be able to reach more folks. If everyone in this country knew the truth about what Trump is proposing, what the Biden-Harris administration has done, and what Harris was proposing, then I believe that Harris would have won this election. If you look at polling and what happened afterwards, it's people who had a whole series of things in their minds that were flatly false about what was happening with crime rates, about what was happening with the national economy, about who wanted to cut taxes for working people and who wanted to cut taxes for rich people. If you just listen to right-wing media, you got a totally upside-down picture of the world. And we need to build a stronger chorus of folks who can push back and deliver the truth. And we need to go out and kind of do information battle and make the case for things that are true in a truth-free, truth-averse ecosystem that Republicans have built. And if we don't combat the right in every channel, every forum in the information ecosystem, then that's on us. Our job is to go out and make that fight, and the independent progressive media is a critical part of that broader battle.
Perfectly put. All right, Ben, if folks want to support you and viewers want to support you, listeners want to support you, this isn't a typical election. So what's the best way for those of us on the outside to make the case to those who actually do decide who the next DNC chair is going to be?
I appreciate it. And one thing I want to say, there's a number of folks running. There's people thinking about running. We're not running against each other. And I want to encourage folks who want to engage online not to do it in a spirit of attack, but rather in a spirit of what gets them going about what we can do together. So share your support on social media. That is something I'd be grateful for. Tag me so that my team and I can see it. Go to benwikler.com and sign up, and we'll send out ways that people can help and opportunities for it. If you're watching this and you're a member of the Democratic National Committee, first, thank you. I love that Democratic National Committee members tune into independent progressive media, and I think it's critical to help spread the word about it. And second, I'd love to get on the phone and talk to you about what it is that we can do together if we're able to prevail in this race. And the last thing I'd say is there are real battles happening right now. Wisconsin Supreme Court race this spring. Get involved and donate to Susan Crawford for Supreme Court. North Carolina has a recount and a litigation battle in their Supreme Court race that's happening right now. And you can donate to the North Carolina Dems to help that. That's going to have a huge effect on the future. There have just been these huge pushes to do ballot cure in California. And there will be special elections coming up to fill positions that Trump has created as empty roles because he's appointing people to stuff. So get involved in your state Democratic Party, get involved in campaigning and elections, and then post the fact that you're doing that in part because you're fired up by the idea of Ben Wikler for DNC chair and the work that we can do together. We want to show, not just tell, the idea that we're going to fight everywhere at every level for our shared values, for a country that works for working people, and for freedom and equality and the idea of universal human dignity. We want to show that by fighting and winning elections. And so if you want to help, post, sign up, donate, and then get involved in those fights to show what we're really about.
Ben, I know I speak for a lot of people in expressing how exciting it is, the prospect of you being able to bring what you've done at WisDems over to the DNC. So best of luck in this campaign here, and I'm sure we'll talk to you very soon.
That sounds great. Thanks so much, Brian.